What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode 156 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends, or click on the support link in this episode's description. Your donation of any amount could change a life. If you'd like to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. When we come back, we'll get into this episode entitled Shine and Release Good. Welcome back to episode 156 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast entitled Shine and Release Good. I want to give a big welcome to my friends in recovery from the U.S., South Africa, and Australia for their participation in this group. As before, I'll be keeping them anonymous, but I'll be saying their answers as if we were having a group meeting. Hi guys, it's been a long time. No pressure today, guys. There's only 4 of you, but I know it's all about quality, not quantity. So no pressure, but I'm expecting quality stuff out of you guys today. And here's today's thought for the episode. Often we try to come up with the right or perfect answer when we are mentoring or advising a guy who is struggling. So here's 2 quotes that could be good advice to us. Feel free to react to one or both of them. The first quote is by Shannon Alder, an inspirational author and therapist. She said, "Sometimes it is how you shine in the darkness during other people's misery that is remembered more than anything you could have said or done when you have suffered just as much." And the second quote is by Craig Lounsbrough, a counselor from Colorado. And he said, "It's not about being good, it's about releasing good." Okay, guys, you ready to get started, Ben? Sure, David. I like number 1 from Shannon Alder. I've got a couple of close friends who are Stevens ministers. For anybody that doesn't know what a Stephen minister is, you're trained to walk with one person for an entire year that has gone through something tragic like a loss of a loved one, etc. You're not allowed to let anybody know that you're their Stephen minister, and especially not what you're talking about with them during the year. You supposedly have no more than one person per year, so you're able to really zero in and focus on that one person and their needs for that year. Anyway, all that said, one of my closest friends has been a Stephen minister for a couple of decades. So that's a long time. And we've had some conversations, not about the people he's worked with, but about the lessons he's learned as a Stevens minister. And one of them echoes Shannon's statement in the first quote. My friend said, "None of the people I've walked with through pain knew each other, or that I walked with them, and amidst the myriad of conversations I've had with each one, they all have one statement in common. That is, I really don't remember much of what you said, but I remember you being there." Wow. To me, it's very profound that of all the words shared to comfort, it was the presence of someone just simply being there that brought the most memorable comfort for all those people. That said, I think the less we focus on what we say and the more we focus on just being with the person, the more effective we could possibly be in comforting them. Also, as a side note, if you personally have gone through the same thing they are going through, your presence carries with it even a heavier weight of comfort. Great start, Ben. And for the listeners, I'll put a link to the Stephen Minister website in this episode's description if you'd like to check it out. Eddie, do you have a story for us? Thanks, David. I also like number 1. And I remember a story of an evangelist that went to an island to tell the inhabitants about Jesus. When he arrived, he found that they were Antichrist and threatened that if he ever mentioned Jesus, they would kill him. So he probably just promised and said, look, I won't talk about Jesus, but I'd like to stay on the island. Well, 20 years passed, and another evangelist arrived and told them he was there to tell them about Jesus. They told him that he could tell them nothing about Jesus, as they knew him very well, and that he had lived among them. They proceeded to show him the grave of the previous evangelist. You see, he couldn't say anything about Jesus, so he just lived Jesus. David, there's no perfect answer when you have someone that is going through hell in their addiction. Many of us have been there. We know, we relate. Last thing we want is someone telling us what not to do and why we shouldn't do it. It's true that love conquers all. Sometimes we just need to be there like the evangelist, quietly, listening, and living. Last thing an addict needs when hitting the bottom is being lectured and criticized. Just be present, listen, encourage, pray. They more than likely will start confiding in you and absorb from the love that reflects through you. They start forming a desire to want to be like you and begin drawing information on how you manage to overcome your addiction and situation. Like a moth, they will be drawn to your light. So just shine. Shaw, Eddie. I love the story of that evangelist and the wisdom in just being present, listening, encouraging, and praying as a model to be the light that will attract a moth. I'm really enjoying the stories you guys are sharing. Glenn, do you have one for us today? Yes, David. The quote from Shannon Alder resonates with me also. And the best way to describe why is reflected in the experience of the following story I'm going to share. A few years ago, I was sitting on a bench facing a dam, a popular fishing site situated next to a local mall. This had become a daily ritual for me. I was unemployed at the time, and so every morning I would make my way to the dam with a small bag containing a Bible and a flask of coffee that I had prepared earlier, and I would sit on the bench sipping the coffee, reading my Bible, and talking to God. I'd lost my wife to illness a few years earlier, and I was struggling to cope with the loss of my soulmate and best friend. The excursion to the dam provided me with a measure of peace in the midst of emotional turmoil, and I guess it showed, as on this particular day, I was approached by an elderly man who asked to sit beside me on the bench. After staring out at the calm surface of the water for a while, he introduced himself and told me he had spotted me on a few occasions and was struck by the sense of quiet peace that emanated from me, which encouraged him to approach me. Then he told me his story. He had just recently lost his wife, something he could not accept or come to terms with. There was great sadness in this man, and through the tears in his eyes, he briefly related his life with this woman he absolutely adored, and then the unbearable grief he experienced every morning upon waking, which was overwhelming him. I cannot remember the exact words of what I subsequently said to him, words of encouragement and how I related to how he felt as I had experienced a similar loss, along with the despair and pain the loss left in me, which I stressed stripped me of the will to live, to continue in this life. I then prayed for him, and when he eventually got up to leave, he told me how reassured he felt and was convinced that I was an angel sent by God to inspire him in hope, as he felt a special aura surrounding me, which is what encouraged him in the first place to sit by me. I assured him with a smile that I was no angel, but yes, that God had somehow caused our paths to cross, and that I too had received something, a special measure of hope, which I received from him in our meeting. I never saw this man again, but I continued to pray for him and instinctively knew he had been enriched by the experience, as I have to say, I was also. Powerful testimony, Gary, of how deeply we can touch people simply by our presence, and how this man was like the moth drawn to the light he saw shining in you as you sat on that bench by the dam. Charlie, would you like to bring us to a close today? I sure would, David, but I'm going to use the second quote, and I'll just repeat that for everybody since we've been on the first one the whole time. It's not about being good. It's about releasing good. And for me, this is an important one because when helping others, I don't worry about being good at what I'm called to do. I make sure I seek God first, and I know He is good. I invite the Holy Spirit in and walk in love, kindness, joy, peace, faithfulness, and self-control. I can operate with forbearance for even the sickest of the mentally ill or the most ungrateful and unlovable people in their addiction. Sometimes I start going at it on my own strength, and I start to see how hard it is to make a decision or to connect someone to the help they need. It's hard to find the words or tolerate all the roadblocks the world has set up in getting people help. So I hit my knees and pray. I see miracles happen, and the Lord gives me the peace and good, just as He promises in His Word. I lived this out when going from the retail food industry in 2020 to first responding to overdose patients. When no one else would go into hospitals, I was going in during the COVID pandemic. I was walking in with no experience in the medical field whatsoever. I was able to face these very difficult challenges with faithfulness and kindness. I was able to place folks in treatment at a rate of like 65% when the industry average was 20% if you're lucky. I was really good at helping people when before I couldn't and wouldn't help anyone. I prayed before every single patient. I prayed each morning for the opportunity to help someone today, and that God's goodness would show up, and every time it was. And it was released for sure because the comments and connections I received were amazing. Great testimony, Charlie. Great way to wrap up the group. And I like how your faith in your higher power ended up moving the mountains of obstacles for others simply through your decision to release good, not just be someone who has good things to say. Guys, thanks for an awesome group session. And as I say, it's all about quality, not quantity. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you would like to join an online group or get one-on-one counseling to help you in your recovery, or maybe you are someone who's a peer coach or a counselor and would just like some advice in your work that you're doing, please message me on the link in this podcast or by email at davidfromatod@gmail.com, or go to my website www.fromatod.org and click on the contact page. You can keep in touch with what we're doing in From A to D by following me on Instagram at David from A to D. For our Spotify listeners, you can leave your comments by clicking on the link they provide on that platform. Tune in Monday for our next episode, and as always, stay safe and stay strong.